Have you noticed how restlessness shows up even when nothing around you is demanding attention? Have you felt moments where the mind stays alert, not because of danger, but because something feels uncontained? Do you recognize how small impulses, checked again and again, quietly drain a sense of calm? Have you sensed that anxiety often appears after choice, not before it? Do you ever feel that the pressure isn't coming from the world, but from an inability to settle inside your own actions? And have you wondered why freedom without restraint can start to feel like instability rather than ease? Anxiety doesn't always come from external stress or overwhelming circumstances. Often it emerges when inner boundaries soften, when attention, desire, and action stop aligning. Without self-control, energy scatters, decisions lose weight, and the mind stays vigilant because nothing feels firmly held. Anxiety does not always arrive as panic. Often it settles in more quietly. It appears as a background tension, a sense of being slightly rushed, slightly unsettled, even when nothing urgent is happening. Many men live inside this state without naming it. They continue working, deciding, moving. From the outside, life appears functional. From the inside, something never fully rests. What makes this form of anxiety difficult to understand is that it doesn't feel emotional. It feels structural, like the mind is always compensating for something unnamed. Attention jumps, desire pulls in multiple directions. Small decisions feel heavier than they should. Rest feels incomplete. This is not because the mind is weak, and not because the world is too demanding. More often, it is because something essential is missing. Not motivation, not confidence, but restraint. A quiet form of control that allows the mind to settle into itself rather than chase every signal it receives. Self-control is often misunderstood as force, as suppression, as saying no through tension. But at its core, self-control is not about restriction. It is about containment. It gives energy a boundary. It gives attention a place to stay. When self-control is weak or inconsistent, the mind remains open-ended. Desires arise and pass without being resolved. Impulses are entertained, postponed, reconsidered, revisited. Nothing fully closes. The result is not freedom, but vigilance. The mind stays alert because it does not trust its own limits. This is where anxiety forms. Without self-control, every choice stays negotiable. Every impulse feels relevant. Every moment carries a low-grade question. Should I act? Should I resist? Should I delay? That constant internal negotiation creates friction, not dramatic stress, but steady strain. Many men interpret this as restlessness or lack of focus, but beneath it is uncertainty about authority, internal authority. When no clear inner boundary exists, the environment begins to decide instead. Mood follows stimulus, attention follows novelty, desire follows availability. The mind adapts, but it never settles. Anxiety in this sense is not fear of the future, it is the absence of a stable center in the present. Self-control provides that center, not by eliminating desire, but by ordering it. When restraint is present, desire knows where it stands. Attention knows what matters now and what does not. Decisions feel quieter because fewer options are competing for legitimacy. This is why a man with strong self-control often appears calm without effort. His mind is not scanning for the next signal. His energy is not leaking through unresolved impulses. His internal environment has fewer open loops. Without that containment, even rest becomes stimulating. Even silence feels uncomfortable. The mind seeks input not because it needs more, but because it lacks closure. Anxiety thrives in openness without direction. Self-control closes unnecessary doors so the mind no longer has to guard them. Over time, a lack of self-control affects more than mood. It shapes identity. A man begins to experience himself as reactive rather than deliberate. He may still achieve, still function, still move forward, but without a sense of inner authorship. This creates a subtle erosion of trust in oneself, not dramatic self-doubt, but quiet unreliability. Promises feel flexible, intentions feel temporary. The mind learns that decisions are provisional, subject to revision by impulse or fatigue. Anxiety grows naturally in this environment because stability requires continuity, and continuity requires restraint. Self-mastery is not about dominating oneself. It is about becoming predictable to oneself in a steady, humane way. When inner boundaries exist, the mind relaxes. It no longer has to constantly monitor its own behavior. It knows what will happen when desire arises. It knows where effort belongs. This is why self-control reduces anxiety even before outcomes change, even before life becomes simpler or more ordered externally. The nervous system responds to internal coherence. When thoughts, impulses, and actions align more often than they conflict, the system downshifts. Importantly, this is not achieved through intensity. Intensity increases vigilance. Self-control that endures is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not argue with every impulse. It simply does not entertain all of them. Many men discover that as self-control strengthens, anxiety does not disappear dramatically. It fades gradually. The background hum lowers. Decisions feel less charged. Time feels less crowded. The mind regains a sense of gravity. What changes is not personality, but posture, an internal posture that no longer leans forward toward every possibility, but stands firmly enough to let most of them pass. Anxiety is often treated as something to be managed, reduced, or escaped, but in many cases it is a signal, not of weakness, not of overthinking, but of a system without sufficient internal structure. Self-control provides that structure, not as rigidity, but as reliability. When a man can rely on his own limits, his mind no longer needs to stay on guard. When impulses are not automatically granted attention, attention regains depth. This does not make life smaller, it makes it quieter. And in that quiet, clarity returns. Not because answers are forced, but because fewer questions compete for space. The mind rests, not because everything is resolved, but because it knows what does not require resolution. In that steadiness, anxiety loses its function, and what remains is not control, but composure.